What if you were stronger than death? How then would you view this election? Would you see yourself as a helpless and fearful peasant? Or would you see yourself as more powerful than any of the current circumstances? I know a guy who has faced death, and he says that dying to yourself in Christ is more difficult than facing physical death. So this guy has almost drowned. He's been in situations involving guns. He's lived in a veritable war zone. He's been through attempted suicide. He's slept in sub-zero temperatures. One time he even rescued some people from a carnivorous animal. Okay, so this guy has faced real death, and he says that the sanctification process is more difficult than facing real death. If you've been through the sanctification process, then you know what it is. You're just living your life with Jesus, and then somebody says something to you or does something to you. It kind of sets you off, and you try to shake it, but you can't, and it gets worse and worse, and you're mad at the person, and then you might realize that you're going through something which is bigger than the thing which set it off. And after a while, you're on your knees crying out to the Lord, "Oh God, please take me home now." Well, this guy says that pain is worse than facing the prospect of dying physically. If you've ever been in that kind of intense sanctification process, then you might remember how painful it is as a worldly part of your soul dies. A part of your soul literally dies. Maybe it feels like you are perpetually vomiting from your soul, like you're in the middle of a surgery, fully awake. It's the most unpleasant thing you've ever been through. And maybe once it's all over, you have a thought like, "Oh, that wasn't so bad. Let's do that again." And why would you ever think like that? Because once it's done, you feel renewed to the point as if it never happened. Because the Spirit of Christ that lives in you, if you're a Christian, pours itself into that spot in your soul that was just gutted out. And that is the most amazing experience in existence. It's a living revelation. New wine is poured into new wineskins. So if you've been through a sanctification process like that, congratulations, you're stronger than death. Jesus has overcome death, and His Spirit lives in you. And as more and more of your salvation is worked out, more and more of you overcomes death. So what does all this have to do with the election? Well, if you're like me, you have a propensity to hope. You yearn for justice, you love peace, you appreciate prosperity, sometimes to the point of idolatry, so that when things turn out good, you start to idolize those things and ignore God. Or even if things turn out bad, you relinquish yourself to the bad circumstances and ignore God. If your candidate does not get elected, are you going to be depressed and bitter for 4 years? Have you idolized the presidency? Remember in the Bible where the Israelites say they want a man as a king? God is willing to be their king, but they don't want that. They want a man. You now have the chance not to repeat that mistake. I mean, you should vote, be faithful with the things of God and the things of man, but don't substitute one for the other. Remember when Obama first took office and people everywhere deified him? The people were saying Obama is their Messiah. And 8 years later, those people are completely disenfranchised with their idol. So if Trump wins, you should not be equating Trump with God, jumping up and down. Trump is my hero. Trump's going to provide for us. But you should have hope that God will heal this nation through that man, through a flawed man, a willing man. God will act and be our provider and be our Prince of Peace. So that every glorious thing that God does to heal this nation will point to God. That is worth jumping up and down for. And people will say, how can this bumbling sinner do these things? So if Trump wins, may the things that God does through Trump be greater than Trump, so everyone will know there is a God. If somebody else happens to be sitting in the presidential seat, then you should not say all is lost, the bad guys have won, but you should have hope that God will confound and confuse the plots of evil. You should pray that God will make a mockery of the forces of evil. So if somebody else becomes the president, whether by fair voting or rigged election or altered reality or martial law, Keep praying for the truth, justice, peace, and prosperity for the country, for your family, your neighborhood, your city, your state. Keep doing what is right. Keep repenting and being humble and working out your own salvation. And you'll have the faith to tear down that stronghold of lies which has plagued our country. Because have you noticed that God haters are starting to speak the truth, yet their hearts are still hard and unchanging? It reminds me of Balaam in the Bible, who was hired to curse Israel but blessed them instead because God made him do it. So if somebody else becomes the president, don't despair, stay faithful. You know, there's this dichotomy that we have. We want Jesus to return to earth, but we know there are birthing pains when he does. So we say, Lord, heal our nation. In effect, make our world a better place right now in our lifetime. But we also say, Jesus, come quickly. And we know that when he does come, the darkness in this world is going to be pretty dark. So we rejoice for signs of the end times and pray for peace at the same time. Aren't those opposites? No, they are not. As the darkness gets darker in this world, our light shines brighter. It does not mean that we are hopeless. Instead, our prayers are all the more effective. So rejoice if God smites evil through this man Trump, or pour out your heart if God allows evil to rule this world. But don't put your identity in the things of this world, even in your candidate. For you Americans, cast your vote as citizens of America, and also do what you do as citizens of heaven. Render to Caesar what is Caesar's, and render to God what is God's. If you find yourself idolizing the election, then pray to God. He is faithful to complete you. That's what he does, even if you don't ask for it, but ask for it. He will set you free by the truth that is Christ, so that you can see clearly. And then, no matter who is in the presidential seat on November 9th, you will know that even death has no power over you.